Every year, typically around the Oscars, I can't help but think about Adam Sandler's unforgettable performance in Uncut Gems. This is a performance that was not super well received by the industry or even the Academy, and part of the reason is because Adam Sandler is the goofy 90s funny man who radiates dad energy, and whose performances I've loved in movies like Grown Ups and Happy Gilmore, but unlike the Academy, everyone knows Adam Sandler is a good actor. At least once a decade, Sandler takes on a dramatic role that blows everyone away. Famous performances include Barry Egan in Paul Thomas Anderson's Punch Drunk Love, Danny Meyerowitz in Noah Baumbach's The Meyerowitz Stories. Both of these performances are consistent with Sandler's persona as goody lovable boy and relatable father, but what if you took Adam Sandler and spun him around, turned him into a degenerate gambler, jeweler, and cheater? What if you took the pure gem of a man and sharpened his edges? Well, you get one of the best performances of his career. The best part about Uncut Gems is that it forces you to be right on the edge of an explosion for its entire runtime. Sandler portrays Howard Ratner, a jeweler and gambler always looking for his big break. Sandler doesn't let us forget that Howard is driven by fear, not just greed. This is a man who has to win at all costs, not just because of money, but because of the way he views himself. If he wins, then he is successful. If he doesn't win, then he's a loser. Throughout the film, Sandler deftly taps into that fragility, showing us a man who can't stop, who can't take a break, who is always chasing the next high. In this sense, Sandler's performance isn't just about how Howard behaves, but why he behaves this way. Howard is always teetering on the edge of a breakdown, and Sandler allows us to see that torment without ever having to explain it explicitly. But the anxiousness that permeates throughout this whole film is also due to the directors. The Safdie brothers helped push Sandler to explore these emotional territories. And this performance is the perfect blend of the Safdie brothers' anxious filmmaking and Sandler's incredible energy. The film's layered storytelling and its unforgiving tension are all things that Sandler expertly navigates. Adam Sandler clearly understands timing. It's the key to his comedy, and in this case, Sandler's command over the timing of Howard's impulses are as funny as they are stressful. Howard spends the whole film letting us in on a joke, but not telling us the punchline, and as more and more of the film continues to pile up, we become more and more invested in the story. Sandler's genius here is in how he balances the comedy and the drama. Howard is, in many ways, a tragic figure, but Sandler's natural comedic timing provides just the right amount of levity to make us almost like him, even when we know we shouldn't. It's a balancing act that only Sandler, with his unique combination of comedic chops and dramatic depth, could pull off. Every phone call, every high-stakes bet feels both absurd and terrifying, because we never know if Howard will somehow make it out, or if he's digging himself a deeper and deeper hole. Throughout the film, Howard confronts all the people in his life who stand in his way, and each scene allows Sandler to fight with this raw, unflinching emotional depth. There's no comfort, no easy emotional release. Instead, we're presented with a man trying to justify his actions, all while teetering on the brink of losing everything. Sandler's ability to make Howard so charming yet so infuriating, so selfish and so deeply flawed is what makes this film so compelling. But let's look at Howard at 3 points throughout the film that are perfectly emblematic of this incredible performance. At the start of the film, we meet Howard in his element, trying to pawn off Kevin Garnett's ring to get some extra cash that he then uses to place a bet. Here we are introduced to Howard's desperation. Howard's first bet takes place early in the film, and it highlights his compulsive need for risk and thrill. At the beginning of the film, Howard is already knee-deep in the world of gambling, having borrowed large sums of money from loan sharks, and is consumed by this desire to win big. His first bet, placed on a basketball game, is framed as part of his bigger plan to secure a fortune. But it is more than just a simple wager. It is a representation of Howard's underlying character flaws, his impulsive decision-making, his belief in easy money, and his inability to confront the deep-seated issues that are destroying his personal and professional life. In the context of the film, Howard's first bet symbolizes the fundamental nature of his addiction to risk. Throughout the movie, Howard is constantly chasing the high of winning, using gambling as a form of escape from the stresses and frustrations of his life. The bet on the basketball game represents his desperate desire for validation, excitement, and financial success. Howard is drawn to the idea that placing a large wager will provide him with a quick solution to his problems, rather than facing the reality of his mounting debts, fractured relationships, and increasing isolation. It is a reflection of the allure of gambling as a quick fix, an illusion of control over his life when, in reality, Howard is spiraling further into a state of crisis. The first bet also reveals Howard's delusional thinking. At this point in the film, he is convinced that his success is just around the corner, and the basketball game represents another opportunity for him to turn his fortunes around. However, the bet is not about rational decision-making. It's about the thrill of the gamble, the belief that one big win will solve everything. Howard's impulse to gamble is not rooted in strategy or logic. Instead, it is driven by an almost obsessive impulse to chase the next high. This mindset is a reflection of his inability to process the long-term consequences of his actions, focusing only on the immediate rush that comes with the gamble itself. Howard's almost mystical betting on Kevin Garnett creates this fantastical nature to his betting. It raises the stakes while also calling upon the gods of chance and coincidence. To Howard, this is not an isolated bet. This is a bet made with money from Kevin Garnett. The bet is tied to Garnett, and therefore the stakes are increased because of it. In this way, Howard relies on the fates, on chance, on some mystical power that will help give this bet a greater chance of winning big.
Well, I'll tell you what I know. That's the dumbest bet I ever heard of.
I disagree, Gary.
About halfway through the movie, we have seen Howard's destructive behavior, and nothing symbolizes this more than his conversation with his wife Dina. Howard and Dina's relationship is one that has clearly endured many challenges, and the conversation reveals the wear and tear of years of emotional neglect, betrayal, and the stress of living alongside Howard's gambling addiction. In this moment, Dina expresses her deep frustration with Howard's behavior as she confronts him about his constant lies, broken promises, and lack of responsibility towards their family. While Howard's response is typically dismissive and self-centered, unable to genuinely acknowledge the depth of Dina's pain, it is clear that she is at a breaking point. The conversation highlights not only their individual struggles, but also the broader destructive cycle they are caught in. From Dina's perspective, Howard's actions have consistently undermined their marriage. She is fed up with his lies and irresponsibility, and seems to have finally reached the point where she can no longer tolerate his behavior. She accuses him of being emotionally absent, consumed by his obsession with gambling and pursuit of wealth at any cost. In their conversation, it becomes evident that Howard has failed to fulfill his family obligations, constantly prioritizing his own desires over the well-beings of his wife and children. His actions, driven by his compulsive need for thrill and instant gratification, has strained their relationship to its breaking point. Howard, on the other hand, reacts defensively to Dina's accusations, minimizing his behavior and focusing on his own sense of entitlement and desires. He tries to justify his actions with the promise of future success, often stating that the risks he's taking will eventually pay off and secure a better life for them all. Howard's responses are indicative of his delusional thinking and inability to see the emotional toll his actions have taken on those around him. Despite the mounting pressure and consequences of his behavior, Howard remains convinced that he is in control of his fate, unable or unwilling to fully acknowledge the damage he has caused to his relationships, particularly with his wife. But not once during this conversation are we encouraged to view Howard as powerful. Dina acts as a very real reminder of Howard's shortcomings, and Idina Menzel's incredible performance dominates this scene. Here, the braggadocious mask that Howard wears is torn away to reveal the broken man, the bad father, the gambler. So we've seen Howard in his element, and we've seen Howard out of his element. How about we have a look at Howard at his rock bottom? After teasing the tension throughout the runtime, the Safdie brothers use violence to help quickly relieve tension, and there is no better example than the punch that happens towards the end of the film. This moment of violence comes at a crucial juncture. Howard's debts have piled up, and he's deeply entangled with the people he owes. The punch itself is not just a moment of physical violence, but a representation of Howard's failure to reconcile the reckless parts of his personality with the consequences of his actions. At the time of the punch, Howard was already cornered. He's in debt, alienated from his family, and on the verge of losing everything. But rather than admit to his mistakes or take any kind of responsibility, he continues to pursue his risky ventures with an almost delusional determination. The punch is the culmination of his refusal to face reality. The punch therefore symbolizes the inevitable outcome of Howard's self-destructive lifestyle. His addiction to gambling and the thrill of risky behavior leads him to make increasingly bad decisions. While it's clear that Howard has moments of insight and self-awareness throughout the film, he is often too entrenched in his pursuit of success to make rational choices. The punch is a reminder of the cost of his unrelenting pursuit of wealth and status, and the toll it takes on his emotional, physical, and social well-being. But after this punch, Howard gets back up. If there's one thing that forces Howard to continue, it's the pursuit of the next big win. And as Howard continues, bruised and bloodied, we see the determination in Sandler's eyes. It's not a flashy performance, it's subtle, layered. This whole movie is about restraint, and Sandler rides the line the whole time, urging you to wait for him to win it all. And after 2 hours of close calls, as the tension is built time and time again, as Howard locks out the world and we watch as suddenly the fruits of his labor begin to realize, the one big win that will fix everything, as we celebrate with Howard as he wins it all, as we finally let out a sigh alongside Howard as his life will finally change for the better, as the tension that has built for the entire runtime is about to be released. Bang. Thank you for watching. For more analysis like this, check out my other videos and make sure to subscribe.